Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the fourth lecture of the self-knowledge course. Today we are going to be talking about energy, about the seven energy centers that we have in our physical body or human machine. We call it human machine because we are essences, we are divine essences that are here expressing in this third dimension through this vehicle, which is our physical body, and is our human machine. And this body has, well, is in energy centers that actually allows the different functionings of this physical body. So today we're going to know which centers we possess internally, right? We are going to know how they work, what energy those centers consume, where they are located, and many other things. We are going to also learn today what are the possibilities that us as human beings has to develop these energy centers, to balance them and to regenerate them, right? And we are going to know which functions they fulfill in our daily livings and how to save energy. And we are going to see why it's so important we learn to save the energy of these centers. Okay. When we talk about centers, we are talking about something that belongs to this physical world, therefore to this physical body, and this to differentiate them from the chakras that belongs to our soul, and the churches of wisdom that belongs to our spirit. These centers, well, are the ones that allow the different functionings of our physical body. We're going to learn them in detail now, and we are going to talk about the chakras and the churches in later conferences. Actually, in the sixth lecture of the phase B, we are going to be studying the chakras and the churches of wisdom. We have seven centers in this human machine. Actually, they are located along our spinal column, and let's explore each one of them. The first center that we have is a sexual center. This one is located at the basis of our spine, at the point of the coccyx bone, right? Right there, we have the centers whose function is to create. And with the centers, we have three possibilities of creation depending on how we use sex. Because every time we go to sex, every time actually we activate our sexual energy, that is the energy that these centers manages, we are actually creating. Depending on the sex we practice, will be the creation we do. If we practice suprasex, which is the practice of superior sexuality, that we talked in the first lecture of this self-knowledge course, and that we are going to be also talking about in later lectures again, we are going to create what is called the children of light, the existential bodies of our being, the different other vehicles that will allow our essence to have presence in the different dimensions of nature, right? If we go to sex to practice what is known as normal sex, but without fornication. Actually, the real normal sex is without fornication, that is, without ever reaching orgasm or ejaculation, but practicing this superior sexuality, but with the intention of having a child, a physical children. Well, we are going to create a physical children through that normal sex. But if we practice infrasex, which is practicing sex, seeking the animal pleasure, seeking to reach the point of orgasm and ejaculation, which is actually fornication, be it just for pleasure or be it to reproduce the species, but if we are wasting our sexual creative energy, making it go out and outside our physical body, we are also going to create, and we are going to create the children of the darkness that are actually all the details of our ego. We are going to be reproducing the animal ego inside ourselves. Those are the possibilities of creation that we have with this sexual center. This sexual center is related to a sense, a physical sense, which is touch, because it is with touch that we must activate that sexual creative energy for a practice of superior sexuality. And there is a defect related to this center, which is laziness. Because as this center has the function of creating, well, laziness is what prevents all creation from being done. Because out of laziness, out of ill will, we do nothing. We do not create, right? And well, then at the level of the sacrum bone, we have the instinctive center. This center is very important. It actually manages the vital energy, all our vital energy. This center has the function of filling with energy all of the lower centers every night when we go to sleep. So they have the energy to function during the next day when our physical body falls asleep. This energy center enter into activity because this one receives energy from the pure spirit, and it produces the different energies for the different centers and distribute this energy. This center has is in charge of all the waters of our microcosm. Therefore, it is in charge of the health of the physical body, of the reproduction of all our cells. It handles also our karma, because from any imbalance on this center comes all illnesses in us, right? The lack of vitality, right? And this center has a conscious function, which is to apprehend. Apprehend is to grasp the deep meaning of any situation that we live without having to store it in the memory of our brain, just storing it in the memory of the waters. And it has an egoic function when managed by our psychological defects, which is to desire. And desire lead us to learn, but through desire and repetition, right? When the emotional center, well, let's see, when from the emotional center comes a desire, this center grasps this desire and then wants to repeat again. Through these centers, we feel pleasure. Through this center, we feel pain. And well, that is the instinctive center. And that is let's see, the unconscious function this center has. The physical sense related to the center is the sense of taste. And the defect is the defect of greed, that defect in us that wants to more and more, and to repeat it over and over again, to feel more and more pleasure, and make us mechanical, running running behind that search of pleasure. And well, the third center is at the level of our navel, but in our spine. And this is the lower emotional center. This one manages our emotional energy, and its function is to feel positive or negative emotions, right? If managed by our consciousness, then we are going to feel positive emotions, like the desire to help others, right? Like true love. But when managed by our psychological defects, we actually feel all the time negative emotions. For example, we think that what we call being in love is actually something positive, but as it is our psychological defects who fall in love, searching for pleasure, well, then we are actually falling in love with negative emotions that make us feel all those sensations, or lustful sensations that make us feel all that attachment, that make us feel all those likes and pleasures, but that soon comes to end in pain, right? In rejection, in hatred, in tears, etc. So those are the negative emotions. Actually, we must learn to self-observe this center, because it manages our fire. Our fire is the encouragement. We have to do things. And as we burn, we waste all our inner fire through the misuse of this center, we don't have like the encouragement to do the things towards the awakening of our consciousness, right? And well, the sense related to the center is the sense of smell, because well, smell is something that activates emotions, and actually through smell, through conscious breathing, you can get to calm down your emotional parts when it is like overexcited. If you learn to consciously Inhale deeply and slowly, retain and exhale. Consciously breathing, you're going to see how your emotion calms down. And well, the defect related to the center is lust, right? Because lust is there making us feel all kind of emotions, making us misuse this inner fire that we have, right? And well, let's see the next center, which is the lower intellectual center. This one is located at the level of our heart in our spinal column. The energy that this center handles is the mental energy, and its function is to think, to plan, to project, to remember, etc. Right? And what is the thing that as our mental part, our lower intellectual center, is constantly used by our psychological defects. We are all the time wasting our mental energy in all kind of negative thoughts. Our defects use our mental part to project our desires, to project their justifications, their opinions, to make us all the day a constant inner chatter, non-stop talking in our minds, right? These defects use this mental part to remember, to plan, right, to fantasize, and we waste a lot of energy on these centers. And we are going to see that we really need energy if we want to succeed in this work towards the awakening of our consciousness. So the best way to think is not to think, but learning to listen to the voice of the heart. Because actually, when we manage to achieve inner silence, right, when we learn to eliminate all those psychological defects that are there, projecting things in our mind, and we make that inner silence, we connect with our superior part, that we are going to talk about that in just a minute. And we are going to receive the wisdom through intuition in our hearts. So if we want to be intuitive people, real intuitive people, we need to learn to balance this lower intellectual center. Well, the physical sense related to this center is the sense of hearing. And actually, when we want to calm down your mind, you can use the hearing. You can, for a while, just pay attention to all the sounds around you without becoming identified with any sound. Just you listen them and you let that sound go, and you look for further sounds, and you're going to see how your mind calms down. Because this is the sense related to this lower intellectual center. And the defect related to this center is pride. Because pride is what is there all the time, projecting opinion, justification, with that self-sympathy that we all have, with that self-consideration. So pride is all their time acting on this lower intellectual center. Well, and the next center is our moral center. That one is located at the level of the larynx in our spine. This one handles emotive energy, the ones that allow us to do, right, and to talk. This through this energy. This center has the function of doing through words, through action, and through omissions. Also, it actually handles our will. And as we are full of psychological defects, you can see that we have a lot of will for things of the ego, and totally lack of will for the things of the consciousness, right? And well, also, as it is managed by our psychological defects, these defects tends to mechanize this center. So you see that we learn to do something, and when this center like perfectionates that movement, we go on through life doing things like zombies without our consciousness, even our thinking, participating in what we are doing. We learn, for example, to brush our teeth, and we just know how to brush our teeth, and we cannot be there. We can have our minds in other place. We can have our emotion feeling totally different things, but we are like there mechanically. The body is there brushing the teeth. Even there are certain things that we mechanize so much that if we think when we are doing them, we can even kill ourselves. For example, when we are driving a car, we are there, so zombies, driving a car. We are just so used to that action, right, with our consciousness, that if we want to be there for a while, we actually can even kill ourselves out of an accident. So that is why we must work to eliminate the defects that act through our motor center. Sorry. So that is consciousness that can actually participate, that can actually carry our physical body, that can actually manifest through our words, through the things we do, and not all those psychological defects. Well, the sense related to this center is the sense of sight, because like coordinates our movements, right? And the defect related to the center is anger, because as with this defect, we do, right, we perform things, we act. Anger is what destroy all our actions, right? Like comes to destroy everything we do, or that take us to omit what we have to do, for example, out of resentment, right? And well, those five centers that I just mentioned are the lower ones, and these lower centers are currently fallen, right? They are unbalanced. But we have two superior centers that are not unbalanced. They're actually working properly, but we almost no human being use them, right? So let's study them. The first of these two superior centers is the higher emotional center, that in us is at the level of the pituitary gland or hypophysis, right here in our brain. And this energy handles the energy of consciousness. And this center has a very important function, which is to judge and to measure effects. So it's with this center that we learn to judge ourselves. Actually, here we have like this balance of justice that allows us to judge ourselves, to make justice in our interior. And this center has a sense, which is the sense of self-observation, the capacity to observe ourselves, or clairvoyance, right? And when we are actually making that effort to observe ourselves, to observe our interior, to observe who is there moving in our emotional part, in our mental part, who is there, what is going on there in our sexual part, and so on. We are activating this center through the sense, through the self-observation. And when we self-observe, then we have that capacity to judge ourselves, to get to understand if that is manifesting in our interior comes from a psychological defect or comes from our consciousness, right? So that is the marvelous function of this center, and it's very good that we start self-observing. So we activate this third eye, or self-observation, sense, and the capacity to for critical judgment, which is to judge ourselves, right? Well, there is a defect that is related to the center that wants to prevent that we make justice in ourselves, which is gluttony. Because gluttony is that tendency in us to go to streams, is what imbalances us. And that imbalance in us is what doesn't allow us to reach the balance, the center. So we can self-observe and judge ourselves, right? And well, the next and the last one and the upper of the two superior centers is our higher intellectual center, whose manages the energy of the pure spirit, and whose function is to know. This center, through this center, we can get to know it all. The sense related to the center is to the sense of polyvoyance, which is the capacity to know it all about everything. Because here, the center, the pineal gland, is the seat of our inner father, which is the wisdom of our consciousness. So if we learn to connect with this superior center, we can get the light, the understanding. For example, when we self-observe, right, and we judge ourselves, then when doing this, we are opening, let's say, like a path to receive the light of our pineal gland, and we can understand that is a defect. It harms us in this way. Let us harm others in that or other way. And that way is how we receive like the wisdom when activating this superior part. And well, the defect related to this center is envy. And when envy, because envy is what try to avoid us, let's say that like that, reach our own wisdom. Envy make us all the time be attentive to what others know, what others do, what others understand, right? And we don't look out of envy the wisdom of our unconsciousness. And while those are the seven centers of a human machine, all of them actually have important functions in our daily living. So the important thing is that we learn to balance these seven centers so we don't waste the energy of the centers. Every night when we go to sleep, as I was saying before, our instinctive center provides all the lower centers with the necessary quota of energy that they need to function the next day. Sorry that I pass here. That they need to function the next day, right? We have a this center give us enough energy for the next day for us to think the necessary things, right? To use our mental part, to use, for example, emotional part to have the encouragement to do this or the other task. We have enough energy, for example, for movements, for the things we must say during the day in a balanced way. And let's say that the greatest amount of energy is deposited in our sexual center because it has the most important function, which is to create. Actually, this physical body is like an energy condenser machine. Is there to condense energy, and the main function of our existence is getting to create ourselves, getting to create our physical bodies. I'm sorry, our internal bodies, right? And it is with that energy that we can do so. But what happens that as we are so imbalanced, as we have so many psychological defects that are manifesting in us at all times, since the very moment we wake up, we start wasting the energy of the centers. We start thinking and thinking and thinking and planning and projecting and remembering and fantasizing and singing songs in our minds and so on. And we very, very fast exhaust the energy of the center. And in order for the center to continue functioning, well, it goes and steal energy from the sexual center, who has like the greatest amount of energy. And the same with our emotions. We just wake up and start feeling this, feeling that, this like, this dislike, this resentment, this passion, this whatever. And we exhaust the energy of our emotional centers so quickly. And this energy, the same, goes and steal energy from the sexual center. The same with the words. What we human beings know to do the most is to speak all kind of unnecessary things, yeah. And through words we expend the energy of our motor center. We do things mechanically without concentration. We take our physical body to extremes of of how can I do that? We also we get so tired because we use so much. We don't have balance in our movement. Even exercising ourselves, we take the body to extremes and we overly exhaust the energy of our centers. We don't have that balance, and our motor center is quickly exhausted. And the same to continue functioning, the center goes and steal energy from the sexual center. And to make matters worse, almost no one knows about the superior sexuality. Everyone goes to sex to fornicate, to expel the sexual energy through orgasm, ejaculation, or they masturbate themselves. And all the energies that can be left in that sexual center are there, exhausted, just to amuse ourselves, right? So, for that reason, we have no energy to create ourselves. For that reason, even though you have this knowledge and you go to sex to try to practice a superior sexuality, if you don't have enough energy to do that creation, you can't. If you are all the time there, misusing our sexual energy. And let's say that you don't fornicate, let's say that you don't masturbate, let's say that you go to sex and you don't reach the point of orgasm and ejaculation. But if throughout the day you are there exhausting all the energy of your other lower centers, they are all the time stealing the energy of the sexual center. So when you go to sex, you have no pure energy. You have not even enough energy to make those superior creations inside ourselves. That is why it is so important that we learn to balance these centers. And how are we going to balance? First, we need to learn to observe them. We need to learn to self observe ourselves. That is to send our attention, right, to our interior at all times to see what is going on in our inner world, to see what is manifesting in our mind, right? What is manifesting in our emotion, who is there deciding inside ourselves, who is there that is using our motor center to talk, to say this or that, or to do this or that, right? So when we observe them, we have the opportunity to eliminate these defects, to avoid, to prevent, sorry, this defect, to misuse the energy of the center. That is how we are going to be learning to save our energy. We need to practice the four rights: the right thinking, the right feeling, the right action, and the right talking, right? We need to have rectitude in ourselves. If we want to have energy to do the superior creations we must do. And how can we do that? Well, we're applying a filter to every action of or function of our soul. A filter to what we think to see if it is fair, true, or useful. A filter into what the things we are feeling, a filter to the things we are or want to do, and the things we want to say. And it is just by asking ourselves, right, if that we are observing in our interior, for example, in our mind, comes from our consciousness or comes from a psychological defect. As I said, when we put this center into activity, when we self-observe and we make this judgment, we want to judge if that comes from our consciousness or from our or a certain psychological defect, then the wisdom comes and we understand that that is a defect. We understand that we are feeling is resentment, is anger, right? Or we understand that we are feeling is lust, or we understand that we are feeling is envy, or that is jealousy, for example. And when we understand that is a defect, we can eliminate it by asking our inner divine mother, which is the fire, the love of our consciousness, to disintegrate that defect. We can ask her mentally, divine mother, eliminate this defect from me, this feeling, this emotion, this desire. We can eliminate everything that we manage to observe. This that is there projecting this opinion in my mind, this justification, the one that is there talking about this and that. Who is it? When we observe that and we judge ourselves, we can get to identify that this chatter in our minds comes from a psychological defect. And we can then ask our divine mother to eliminate that defect, to remain the balance. When we are working on this rectitude, on this, on death in motion, asking for death for everything that we observe from moment to moment, we start experiencing the real peace, right? The happiness of being here and now, the presence consciousness can manifest in us. Because right now we are so used to let the psychological defects to manifest that we don't know what is the manifestation of our consciousness. So the same we do with everything we want to say and with everything we want to do. We must judge ourselves, right? To verify if that is one of that is the ones to talk right now, or that wants to do this right now, this mechanical activity, is my consciousness or is a psychological defect? When we observe a psychological defect inside, immediately My mother eliminated this defect, and then we don't say what that defect wanna say. We don't do what that defect wanna do. And that way consciousness can manifest through us. And we can do things consciously. And we can say things when it's necessary in a conscious way, right? And well, if we practice this for rights, if we work on the death emotion, self-observing ourselves, judging ourselves, eliminating our psychological defects, we are going to start saving energy. And that energy will allow us, when wisely using sex, right? When going to sex, to practice a superior sexuality, to create the superior existential bodies of our being that will allow us to, as I was saying, have a conscious presence in the different dimensions of nature, that will transform us, that will allow us to get out from this current state of rational animals to become true men, and then to become supermans, and then to become absolute men, because that is the real purpose of our existence. All of us has this possibility inside ourselves. In all of us resides the seed of divinity, but we need to make that seed to start to fertilize that seed, right? We need to make that seed grow in us, and for that to happen, we need energy. We need this energy, and we need to go to sex to make superior creations with that seed of divinity to transform ourselves. And well, since all possibility of being depends on this that we have talked today, we must start practicing this immediately. So we start seeing changes. So we start also succeeding in the different practices for the awakening of consciousness, and so that we start experiencing, the transformations that are going to start occurring in ourselves as we start eliminating our psychological defects and allowing our consciousness to manifest. And well, people, this has been today's lecture, the fourth lecture of the phase A. The next lecture that we are going to be sharing with you, that is next Monday, that we share the phase A lectures on Mondays and Thursday, will be the two lectures in one, the lectures 5 and 6 of the phase A, which is the dimensions and where these dimensions are in us. A very interesting lecture. Please don't miss it. If you haven't seen our previous lectures, you can look for them here recorded in the page or in the YouTube channel. And well, if you are not yet part of our WhatsApp or Telegram groups, here in the description of this video, you can find the links to join our groups, to receive all the lectures, and to receive complementary material of each of these lecture. Remember that all these conferences that we are sharing with you, we are sharing them for free, and all the material that we share is also for free. And well, thank you very much for attending this lecture, and see you the next time. Bye bye.